Welcome to Behind the Point. I'm Pastor Jeff. I'm here with a very special guest today with Suzie Doeren,
Hello.
and excited to have you on here.
Thank you.
It's been a year of pestering you. You said no, I think more than once.
I
You're like,
did.
I'll let you know.
I did.
And then finally I wore her down so she'd be on the podcast with me. But
And Josue said I had to.
and Josue, her boss, said that she had to. So thank you for being here.
Thanks for
I'm
having
glad
me.
you're not fired and you get to stay with us.
Me too.
Susie's part of our management team. So we have 5 on our management team. Pastor Josue leads it, and then the 2 of us, and then Ron, and who's our church administrator, and Pastor Pam. And so that's a new role for you.
It is.
And
January 1.
January 1st. Yeah, you just started. And then, but you've been at the church quite a while, and you are probably best, your biggest role in our office is as human resource administrator. Is that your title?
Yep.
And then she runs our Church in Action group. I'll let you talk about some of these things in just a minute here. What else? What else am I missing? Your
Financial
role.
Secretary.
That's right.
And office and
Oh, yeah. You're in charge of
missions.
our office. Anything we need. We ask Suzie, can we move this? We go through you. What was the last thing?
Missions.
Missions. That's right. Yep. So we've we've now, Church in Action is almost the umbrella over that, right? So we have global missions and then our local outreach.
Missions,
Yeah, as part of that. So how long have you been at Centerpoint?
So I came to Centerpoint. My best friend and her family had been at this church for a really long time. And I used to come for Easter and Christmas, Christmas Eve. Always such amazing programs there. But we were part of another church where we lived, but we spent those holidays with them. So we came down with them. Then when Centerpoint did the multi-site in Calamasa for a while, I started attending more regularly. My kids went to youth group and we went to the Bible study, and it just started to feel like my church family. So then when we moved everything back here, I came back. I came on staff in 2018.
Okay. Yep.
So
I'm glad you're one of the most important people on our staff to me. I was thinking this morning, I'm like, Susie's in my top 5, like most important people here. Carrie's always my number 1 wherever I go. My wife, of course. But she goes everywhere with me. So I didn't even count her in the top 5 here because she's just automatic. But I'm like, Pastor Josue, Suzie, and I won't say the others so I don't hurt anyone's feelings.
Okay.
But
thank you.
You were so instrumental for me. I mean, and in so many ways, just encouraging me as a pastor, my onboarding. So you're one of the first persons I worked with to
that's true.
help me with benefits and figure out getting settled and everything. So, and then you help both Pastor Josue and myself with sermons as one of our reviewers and giving feedback and whatnot. So if you don't like the sermons, it's also on Suzie as well. But tell us a little bit about your family.
So I've been, this year in September, I'll be married 27 years to my husband, Brian.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
27.
27.
Wow.
Yeah. I have 2 adult children, 2 adult boys, and I just got a beautiful daughter-in-law a week ago Monday.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. And God has really blessed me with friends that are like family.
Yes.
I don't have a big family. We don't have big family left, but we have lots of friends that are family, and an amazing church family, of course.
A lot of people would know your oldest son because he's...
Yes, Connor did the donut
he did
ministry.
The donut ministry for a long time.
And served in the high school group for a long time.
Yeah.
So.
And then Brody's your youngest son.
The younger one,
Cool.
Yeah.
And what's your daughter-in-law's name?
Sienna.
Sienna, that's right.
Very proud of all of them. They're amazing kids.
Yeah, I saw a wedding picture, so.
That's all I got too.
But beautiful couple
Beautiful
very,
couple.
very excited for you.
Very excited for them. Yeah, thanks.
So let's talk a little bit about kind of your journey as a believer. Would you share just a little bit about your testimony coming to Christ and your story?
So my parents divorced when I was really young. Like, I think there's one picture of my entire family together. So I say that because I grew up in different sides of the state of Missouri. So my dad lived in Kansas City and my mom lived in St. Louis. So when I was at my dad's, he took us to church. So I do see now that seeds were definitely planted. I did vacation Bible schools and that kind of stuff, but I had to wear a dress to church.
So very conservative,
and I had
traditional.
to match my sister a lot, and we did not like that because we were tomboys. So that's kind of a early memory of church, but it was overall just a really good experience. And it later on, so then I spent most of my teen years away from the Lord, and it was evident in the decisions I made and everything. And when I was in my late 20s, my boss invited me to church, and she went to Harvest in Riverside. So I went a couple times with her, and I remember dedicating my life like up on the balcony. I just can see the moment so clearly. Like I just knew that it was the answer to like everything. And
was that Greg Laurie preaching that Sunday too?
Yep. Yeah. And I remember just feeling the clean slate. Like I just remember feeling like I can go forward with God. Like, and I didn't think I could before. So I remember that feeling like so that's what started it. And then I met my husband, and we were kind of starting our journeys. Like he was a little farther along than me. And then we
faith-wise. Yeah.
His brother.
And you knew him kind of in this beginning of this season.
Yeah, yeah. And then his brother really walked along with us a lot in the beginning. We had a great church up in Yucaipa. And I was baptized the day before we got married.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's
that's
pretty
awesome.
all my family was in town, so it was pretty memorable.
Yeah, that's sweet.
I don't forget the date.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Always helpful. Yep.
Is there anything you would say this season? So now you've been a believer for some time, have continually grown in your faith with Christ and taking steps with him and maturing. Is there any kind of like passion or focus you feel like God's put on your heart this season?
Yeah, I'm, figuring out being a mom to adult kids. I homeschooled both of my kids from day one to high school graduation. So there was a big life shift. That was my ministry for a really long time.
Yeah.
I was very engulfed in the homeschool community and investing in the lives of those kids. Like that was just my life and my ministry. So coming back to work has been good. I'm real passionate about, I think the church. Like I'm just excited about the church becoming the church that God intended. Like I've said it before, like I want people, if Centerpoint were to ever close down, and I don't think that's ever going to happen, but I would want the community to go, well, who's going to do fill in the blank? Like who's going to be there for people? Like who's going to do this, And I think the church can answer has a really big call. I want to see our reputation, for lack of a better word, improve. I think we just need to live different. Like we just need to look different than the world and show the world what God has to offer. Like, for me, he was literally the answer to everything. And I think he would give that to anybody.
Yep.
So I'm just passionate about that right now. Just want to see the church be the church.
Yeah, that's so important. And now it's kind of neat. God's positioned you more and more in a role to impact that. And we all do on an individual basis.
Absolutely.
And everybody has a role one-on-one with people. But now it's like you've moved now January 1st, 2026. You're part of the management. You get to influence a lot more of the decisions of the church, like being part of the leadership team. And then having such a close connection with Josue and myself and Pastor Pam and the others. So I'll be excited to see on what new
where
levels.
The church is.
Church in Action, we'll talk about it next, I guess. You've been part of this ministry almost 2 years, a little less,
almost
right?
2 years, yeah.
So the Wallaces started this.
Randy and Jackie.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about what is Church in Action? Tell us a little bit about the ministry.
So I was drawn to Church in Action. I would see the bulletin announcements. Their meetings were always on Sunday nights, and that was our family night. Like I could never really go, but I think God has really placed in my heart and life just a passion for servant evangelism. I'm not some people have the gift to stand on the corner, whatever. I really just believe that serving people, one of my spiritual gifts is helps and mercy. And I just think that's why I'm so drawn to that, just to get out and do for people. And they go, why are you doing this for us? Well, because everyone matters to God.
Yes.
And so I love seeing that connection that we made recently. So they started it years ago.
You helped with some of that language probably too. Were you part of those discussions? Because everyone matters to God.
I think it was from
we
the
added that. I guess I don't know if it's a tagline or the beginning of our a prequel to our mission. Our mission: believe in Jesus, belong to the family, become fully devoted.
Right.
We felt like it needed something else, a why statement, and so
so I love that's just really seals the deal for me. So that's kind of that. So I love the idea of getting out there and serving the community. So when I got involved as a staff member, I think it was just a little easier for me to kind of help get that going.
Hmm.
And then I kind of switched roles and became the lead. And Jackie's just been amazing. And Randy teaches at our meetings, and Jackie prays for us, and she's just
Yeah.
so amazing.
And they're such servants. They've for years have done just charitable work and
Right.
worked with different ministries that
Yep.
go and meet tangible needs for people.
So the goal of
Yeah.
Church in Action, my goal is to create partnerships and opportunities for the church to serve the community.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of what the goal is.
Can you tell us our local partners that we're currently
I had to
serving,
write
or
them down
some
so I
of
don't
them?
forget. So
Yeah.
the San Bernardino Mission, we're
Mhm.
really, that's just a really great entry level. They have we have set days. We go twice a month
Yeah.
as Church in Action, the first and third Saturdays. Run to Rescue, we have a lot of people getting behind their work. They help victims of sex trafficking,
Mhm.
and they have a Warehouse of Hope in Riverside. They have one day a month. It's an organized 2-hour event where they bring in volunteers. So we've been participating in that.
And that's don't get to meet the survivors of trafficking at
We were
that.
working with one on
Oh,
Saturday.
really?
Yeah.
Okay, I
They're
didn't realize that.
Yeah, they're there.
So there's different roles and stuff in it.
We
A lot
do.
of. Oh, go ahead.
The biggest thing they do is they do Bible highlighting. Like
Mhm.
you highlight Bibles. Every girl that comes off the streets gets a backpack and a Bible. And we did inventory I was there Saturday, and we did inventory. So girls can come when they come off the streets. A lot of times they literally have nothing,
Right.
and they can come in there and get clothes and makeup and hair care products and just all sorts of stuff. So we were organizing that. But yeah, there was some survivor. There was at least one I know, and like you don't really know, but I knew. But yeah, it's a really beautiful thing that they do.
That's really an important. That was a passion of, and continues to be a passion of Jackie's.
Jackie's,
is
yes.
getting just women specifically, but men and women out of trafficking.
Right.
And so, that's called Run to Rescue.
Run to Rescue.
Run to Rescue. Yeah.
And then Brookdale Senior Living we have just a fantastic group of people that help them put on events for the senior residents.
Yep.
So it's people that just don't get a lot of visitors. They've had to leave their homes. They're elderly. And our people love going and helping them party, really. They
Yep.
do a party event for everything, like Father's Day, Mother's
Yes.
Day, and everything.
St. Patrick's Day,
St.
probably
Patrick's
coming
Day,
up,
Valentine's Day, like New Year's Eve,
Yep.
they did something, and they do karaoke. And I'm getting my room on reservation.
Oh, yeah, I know.
So I'm like, wow. So we have a group of very dedicated people that go there. We have opportunities to make bags for people living on the streets.
Yep.
We work with a family that distributes them. We have opportunities for people that knit and crochet to do all sorts of projects for the partnerships that we already have. So Faith in Motion is a new one. They help foster families. We did the comforter thing.
They're like connection between, it's often like the government and then they work with
Riverside
churches.
County and
Riverside
churches.
County.
Yep.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, they are like a middleman to connect churches with needs that the county can't always get met. The social workers can't always get met through funding or whatever. So that's a new one that we really have starting to partner more with. Not everybody has service opportunities, and
Right,
that was a
some
little
are-
harder than I
Yes.
expected to find ways to actually
Yeah.
go serve. So, but that's
A lot's
the goal.
collecting items to
A
help.
lot of them need
or
stuff.
funding. We just fund certain,
Stuff and money.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the ones that we're working at are really consistent and really open to having people. So
Yeah.
it works good.
And it was MCC or
MCCA
MCCA was one
We've
more,
had
right,
yes,
too.
we've got a few people going down there. They go once a month down
Yeah.
to Baja.
That becomes, I guess, global. I don't know.
It is. No,
it's
it's a little-
drivable for us.
Yes.
But
yeah, and it starts out of Redlands, so it feels local.
yeah,
but
Mexican Children
they do
Christian Aid.
Yeah,
Okay.
and they
So we-
provide food supplies to children's Christian organizations in
Yeah.
the Baja area. I
Yeah.
believe.
So we have a team that drives there and actually distributes the goods. They
Yeah,
pick
so
up the goods.
we have one, Seth Wallace, Jackie and Randy's, one of their sons, is very involved. He goes every month. So what we do is if people are interested, we plug them in with him.
Oh, okay.
And we
Yeah.
normally get riders. So you go down and you can help with that. Very rarely do you get interaction with the children. It does happen, but
Right.
it's more of a food distribution. It's a very long day. And the people that go really, really like it. It's a lot of sitting. It's a lot of sitting in a car carrying heavy bags. But it's really a beautiful thing that they've been doing since 1970. I think.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been out for a long time.
Can you say a little bit more about the mission, the San Bernardino City
Yeah,
mission?
the San Bernardino City
What do they
mission.
do? And I guess what are some roles when we go and serve
Okay,
twice a month?
they're an amazing organization. So people that apply at the mission for their program receive help through food,
hmm
and they have to qualify. So it's income based and
hmm
family size based. And then once a month they open this store called Blessingdale. So I think it's the biggest thrift store I've ever seen. And they get a voucher and they get to come in and shop with their
Mm.
voucher. So it's 2 hours of mass chaos, and they'll run 100-something families through there. So
Wow.
you're helping them, you're checking people
Yeah.
out, and
It's very
um,
organized because there's like a toy room, right?
there's the toy
There's
room. Oh,
furniture, there's clothing all in one
yes.
section. There's holidays, right? There's a
Oh,
holiday
yep, they
room
can
and
get Christmas tree.
yeah,
Their heart is to give people
sunglasses. Oh,
dignity
yeah.
and to give people things that they might not get. They don't have money to spend on.
Yeah.
So one of my favorite places to work is the jewelry counter because I love jewelry, and you just see people come in that they can't afford to go buy a necklace,
Right.
but they want something to wear to church on
Yes.
Sunday or so. It's just
Yeah.
super fun. So that's the first Saturday we work in the store. With that, there's always pricing,
Yeah.
organizing, shelving, folding blankets, hanging clothes. And then up on the top, they call it the bus barn. That's the
hmm
food distribution. So there's food box packing, loading up people's cars, praying with people, and things like that. So
Yeah. Lots
yeah,
of opportunities to
lots of
serve there. So we
opportunities.
go again, just to clarify, the first and third
First and third
Saturday of
Saturday.
the month. Yeah.
hmm
So, and they'll probably take workers other times possibly too, but
Oh
that's when
yeah,
our group
yeah.
specifically
Our
goes.
group
So,
specifically goes, but we have a
yeah.
place on our website if you wanted to serve other times. We
Yeah.
can help you out with that.
Okay. And how can our listeners find out more about Church in Action?
Okay, so I had to write this down. So if you're on our app, you
hmm
go to the groups page and scroll down till you find Church in Action and hit tap and click that. If you're on the website, you pull down Connect and go to
Yes.
Church in Action. And it takes you to our page where you can sign up for anything. I really encourage people that are interested to get in our group because we have too many things going on to get an announcement every week.
Yes.
So it really is what I do is I send out newsletters and I send out mailings and I send out invitations. Somebody needs something, I'll send it out to the group. So I'd love to see that group get a lot bigger because that's how we communicate.
Yes.
Because there's just not time on Sunday morning. So
Our hope is to get so many volunteers and so much generosity from the church and
mhm,
to add more and more and more community organizations,
mhm,
right? And just, I mean, to your vision, flood the community
yeah,
so that they just know we could turn to Centerpoint
exactly.
whenever we have different needs, right?
And I think that's why I think the church is here for the community. Like I
Yes.
think,
Yeah.
God brings people into our doors, yes, and there's a definite calling and place to minister to them,
Yeah.
but there's also I think he calls us out,
Yeah.
and so
Absolutely.
that's kind of we have passionate about different things. I'm passionate about the out,
Yeah.
So
And that leads to conversations, that leads to transform lives as those
yeah,
folks are
absolutely.
introduced to Christ. But meeting, sometimes it starts with, or oftentimes starts with meeting those basic
Yeah.
needs, physical needs and tangible needs.
Well, there's
So,
been a lot of studies through the Chalmers Center and other things that it's hard for people to receive the good news of Jesus when they don't believe, they don't
mm,
have faith, and they can't eat.
yeah.
Like it's hard for them to fathom
Yeah.
that.
Sure.
But if they see people serving them and helping them
Yeah.
and partnering with them and saying we care about you, that we are representing Jesus in those moments.
Yep.
And I think that's what brings it beauty.
I'm at the end of Matthew chapter 25. Jesus talks about
Sheep
loving
and
the
goats.
least of these. He
Mm.
says, the disciples asked, when did we ever see you hungry? When did we ever visit you in prison? And he
Yeah.
talks about when you did those for the least of these, when you
Right.
did these things for others, when you fed the poor, when you clothed them, when you helped the sick, when you visited prisoners, you did those things for me.
Right.
And so I think it's just a great connect. Church in Action is really helping our church to be able to do that more and more effectively.
That's what I hope.
So,
Servant
yeah.
evangelism.
Yeah.
Just saying you matter and we care about you and, being a place that they know. Like I knew when my life got to a certain point, I had enough God put into it,
Yeah.
enough examples that I knew where to go.
Yeah.
And I knew that was what I was missing. So I want people to know that's what they're missing.
That's awesome. Well, I strategically brought you on the podcast this this season because we've been in a series called "I Can't Afford It,"
Mhm.
and so a lot of the series is about money and giving and generosity, stewarding well, managing what God's given us well. One, you've modeled that in your personal life. Two, you're our church financial secretary, so you see a lot of how, just I guess the impact of giving and some of those trends. So I thought it'd be really helpful to have you as part of this conversation, in addition to also having just your passion for how could our generosity go out and bless people.
Mm.
And so thanks for coming on specifically this this season. I think it just complements well what we've been thinking about and talking about as a church. I did want to say, as we're thinking about stewardship, for the listeners to also note, I interviewed Ron Whitman. He's also on our
Ron Heyman.
Heyman. Why did I say Whitman?
Because there's a Ron
There is
Whitman here.
Shout out to Ron Whitman. He's
Hey,
awesome
Ron.
too. Ron, thank you. That's why you're here. Help me out. Ron Heyman is our church administrator, and he also works in our financial area. So last year, April 10th, 2025, I interviewed him on the podcast. I think he also has a lot of really great wisdom when it comes to finances and just thinking about the church. We dove into a conversation a little bit about how we as a church manage money. So specifically accountability for our team, what giving's impacted, some other things. So that may be a helpful listen to others as well. So that was with Ron Heyman on April 10th, 2025, if you go back in the records. But I wanted to have a similar conversation with you. My first question is, do you have a favorite verse or passage when it comes to giving? Is there anything that stands out to you?
I don't think there's so many. I don't think I can give a verse or a passage, but one of the things I love is a concept. Like concept, the story of gleaning in scripture.
Yeah.
God's economy that he set up. It's lived out in the book of Ruth, which is where most people know about the gleaning with Obed and the field. But I love to read about it in Deuteronomy. I think it's 24. Deuteronomy 24. Yeah. And it's just I think it's just such a beautiful picture of the way that God wants it. It's like, I love the dignity. You leave some margin for the people that need it, and then they work for that. And I think that's a beautiful thing. But I've always loved that part of it. Yeah. But a few months ago, I was kind of convicted on the part about the middle, because it was brought to my attention through study that the people would have tithed on the middle. Like they didn't tithe on the margin. They gave on what they harvested. And then, so it's this idea of not using all of our resources. And I read a book called Margin years ago. It's really a phenomenal book about leaving margin in our lives and time and space. And so when
I
you
remember
apply
you sharing that with me.
Yeah. So when you apply that financially to not sucking up all your resources for yourself, leaving some for the poor, and then tithing was kind of like mind-blowing.
Yeah. Frees you up to be generous. Just to give some clarity, in case some of the listeners aren't familiar with some of those passages. So the Old Testament specifically, the Israelites were an agrarian people. So many of them were farmers and owned land, and that was the way that they made an income. And so they would leave, if you picture a field, they would leave the outskirts of the field, not farm, not harvest to the very edges. And so they would leave some for those who were in poverty to be able to come and pick fruit or pick, pick olives or nuts or whatever that would be, to be able to have some, something that they could live on.
Right.
And the book of Ruth is a story of a widow. She's actually a foreigner, and but she was married to a Jewish man and or an Israelite man, and ended up being widowed. She stays with her mother-in-law, and she goes to a field because she has nothing, and she follows behind someone. She follows behind the workers to be able to collect, and then that woman Ruth ends up becoming the grandmother or great-great-grandmother of King David. So she marries in. There's a whole beautiful story behind all of it and how God redeems her. But David's great-great-grandmother, was in poverty and was blessed because of this system that God put in place to make sure that everybody was cared for.
Right. Everybody was cared for, and because I hear the word dignity a lot at the San Bernardino Mission. Sure. It's very important to give people struggling. We're not superheroes out saving people. We're all people struggling at different times, and so I really like that the way that God set that up.
Yeah.
Like there's enough if you leave margin on the outside. But then when it hit me, it's like they left that, then harvested the middle, and then that was what they lived on and tithed on and everything else. So it was kind of I just think it's a beautiful image of God's provision.
Yeah. Love that. What have you learned about giving to God in your personal journey, and or with your role as financial secretary, just seeing giving coming through in the church?
Right. I've learned a lot. So I learned about myself that I'm going to admit it. Generosity did not come natural to me. Like my husband is a very naturally generous person. Like he sees need and doesn't question a lot. And I was a lot slower to that party. But he was very patient and knew that God wanted me to be cheerful about it and let me walk my path. And eventually we got to a place together where I've come to see that. I think what surprises me the most is how we give to benefit others, but what it does for us is just such a gift from God. And it just feels like cheating a little bit. It's like it shouldn't be good for me.
That
if
is rewarding.
Yeah, like it's rewarding, but it really is. Like it really is. So to see him work things out in people's lives, to see us, because I went through it, just turn around to a trust level of trusting him with it is really cool. And I love the name of our series, I Can't Afford It, because that's one of the things when I work with people financially, it's like you're deciding what to afford. Like we all make choices. So my mom would say that a lot. She passed away, but she struggled financially, and she would say, I can't afford it. I'm like, well, you can afford it if you don't do this, A, B, and C. Like you can't do A, B, C, D.
You have to sacrifice somewhere.
You have to sacrifice somewhere. So I just really appreciate that. But it's just it's the personal benefit. It feels like you're cheating.
Sure.
But yeah, that's probably what I've seen. And it's different for everybody. It's just, it's obedience and it's faith and it's trust and it's a journey, so. It's
a beautiful picture. I think when we all participate in it, we get to be part of God's work that happens from it.
Right.
Something, we give a little bit, but that's in combination with what others give. And then, Pastor Josue just shared recently in his message about the widow with the jars, and God takes a little bit and does amazing big things with it. So we give, and I know for me personally with some financial, just in my own life, it's like amazing how God does beyond what I feel like we invested, and he takes it and runs further with it.
For sure.
Each week in our series, this I Can't Afford It series, Pastor Josue and we've referred to a book by Pastor Andy Craver called Keep the Change. And you read this book. You loved it.
I read it.
Did you read it first?
I did.
And then you told Josue about it?
No, Josue asked me to order it.
Okay.
And I asked him if I could order one for me too.
Okay.
And he generously said yes. And then so they came to my house, so I got it and I read it, and I read it in a day and a half. I could not put it down.
It's a great book.
It's a great book. Yeah.
Any key takeaways from that when it comes to generosity and stewardship? Anything from that book that really stood out to you?
Yeah. So that book is written to ministry leaders and churches, but obviously the principles are for everybody. And I love that we're incorporating those for personal, giving as well.
Yes.
But the tagline of that book, I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget. It's called Transforming Your Community Through Radical Generosity. And I think that was just my favorite part. It was about how the church, radical generosity, how the church will transform the community. Again, it's that going out, like going, being here for people to come in, but also going out. So it's a
radical's extreme.
Radical's extreme.
Yeah.
Radical's extreme.
So that takes some sacrifice, probably some planning, and that's kind of one of my takeaways. It's like you really have to be strategic and intentional about it. I would echo. I agree. It is more. There's great takeaways, I think, for everyone, but there's other books maybe that are more geared to our listeners who are not ministry leaders.
Yeah, like an individual journey. And I'll share some of those.
Sure, please do.
I have a lot of those. So Dave Ramsey, of course, if you're listening and you have not done Financial Peace University, it's coming up in March. So he's the one
that created Financial Peace University.
Created it. It transformed my husband and ours financial picture decades ago. I felt like we were kind of late to the party. So if you're young, jump in now.
Yep.
Our kids are so far ahead of where we were. Randy Alcorn has done just amazing work on money and giving, and
he's a pastor too.
He is a pastor, and the Treasure Principle is probably his flagship work. It's a tiny little read. It's really good. But the one that I would say was the most it's called God and Money. And it's written by John Cortines and Gregory Balmer.
Oh, okay.
And I read that
have it here with you.
I had to bring it so I didn't forget. I read that a couple years ago, and I think what was really that stood out and still sits with me today is that they talked about kind of what beyond the tide. Like their story in a nutshell is they were both very successful high earners. And when they started giving, they realized one day, like 10% is nothing to us. But they had just gone, we give 10%, 10%, 10%.
Yeah.
And so they flipped the script and said, instead of asking you come to a point, not everybody's there, but how much should I give to how much should I keep?
Oh,
and
okay.
they talk about,
Interesting.
Isn't that interesting? And they talk about, like, you get to a standard of living and then the rest is, for generosity. So that it was just interesting. I think it was the first time I wrapped my brain around the fact that God cares about the 100%. Like Craig said in his interview that it all belongs to God.
Yep.
But a lot of people think God cares about the 10. That's what he asks us to give. But God cares about what we do with the 90 or the 85 or the 95. He cares about the 100.
Yes.
And I think you can give 10% to the church and still not be a wise steward if you have just tons of excess or you're living in, just excess probably would be the thing.
Well, or the opposite. I mean, just almost near debt or paycheck to paycheck where it's like maybe there is a better way to get ahead and be able to think more thoughtfully with it.
Yeah.
But
I
all
think
of it matters.
Exactly.
To him,
all of it matters. Like on the flip side, I had a friend whose husband would give a lot of money to the church, but she didn't have a lot of money for groceries. And so I don't, you can look at a principle, but I just down at the bottom line, I'm not sure that was a pleasing sacrifice.
And some people, it's easier to manage just with what income you have or opportunities before. I mean, we acknowledge that.
Yep, absolutely.
It's some people, it's much more of a sacrifice to get their finances in order and to get into the system of being able to be generous or to have a goal percentage in mind or whatever to give.
Absolutely.
But for everyone, if you have a great starting point or a difficult starting point, it still matters to God.
Right. And how you spend what you don't give matters.
Yes.
And I think that was the first time I kind of heard that. Like, are you being wise with all of it? Because it all comes from him and it's all his. So I think that was just kind of the first time that concept kind of hit me. So that was a really cool book. Lots of good stuff in there. And their story is really neat, So.
And that's one, again, you would recommend really for anyone.
I would recommend it for anybody.
Say it one more time.
It's called God and Money.
God and Money
by How We Discovered True Riches at Harvard Business School.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. John Cortines and Gregory Balmer. There's a bunch of podcasts with them too. If you're more of a podcast listener, that's where I was introduced to them.
Okay.
But I love to read. So then I ordered the book.
Cool.
The podcast's good too. So
awesome. Thanks for the recommendation. Can you share any stories that stand out from, about people giving? Any just that some people you talked to or little things you've seen, obviously without disclosing information about anyone.
Thanks for telling me.
Yeah.
No. There's so many. Every week I see new givers. There was 8 this week, and I just because in our system they pop up, and we like to send them a letter specifically written by Pastor Josue and thanking them for that. So seeing people start that journey is really fun. Yeah. So I love seeing that. Anytime we run a campaign and we put a need out there, our church has blown my mind with how much we collect. Back from Eyes on Nigeria to the eye surgeries to the pregnancy center on Saturdays to the medical clinic in Cambodia. I just see so much of that. But I think
I don't remember the eye surgery one.
That was before you.
Oh, it was before my time.
Was that the Home Depot buckets? I think that was
Where was it was another nation?
It was for Tunde and Friends.
Oh,
and so there was one of them where we collected change.
Oh.
You should ask around about that. No, that wasn't it. There was one where we collected change, and it was big, heavy Home
Oh,
Depot
how
bucket.
funny.
Yeah, so I think it
Everyone's
was that one.
people
Change.
hurting their backs from carrying
I think
the
so because I have a
buckets.
cup in my closet that says I was on Nigeria, and I still use it for
Oh,
change. So,
oh yeah, I think I've seen that in your office. Okay, now I
yeah,
know
so I
what it
think that
is.
was it.
Yeah.
So that I just think the way that the stories I hear of our church helping each other
Mm.
is really powerful. Somebody gave me a gift a couple weeks ago, and it was a small gift, but I know that person, it was a big sacrifice for them and something they just thought that I would enjoy. So to just see little things and big
Yeah.
things, you know,
Sure.
it's just our church has such a range, but over and over and over, when I teach connections or anything, I'm always saying what a generous church we have. Like we
Yeah.
are a very generous body of believers.
Yep. I forgot to mention up front, you teach connections.
Yes.
So that's
yes.
another part of your job description.
Yeah.
But our connections class is about getting people connected to our family, to Centerpoint, and just giving a little more insight our mission and
Right.
thinking about serving and getting connected
Right.
more deeper into ministry. And so thanks for teaching that as well.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I guess kind of two more questions. The last one
Okay.
is just a free for all, whatever
Okay.
else you want to say.
Love
But
free for all.
one more specific one before that. What would you say to someone who hasn't started giving to Centerpoint, assuming they're an attender or a regular?
Yeah.
Here?
If this is your church home, I would say just start somewhere. Like be intentional. Give something and see what God does. I think as a church, we want to tell more stories. I think we want to tell people what their giving is going to. Like you shared about the baptistry this weekend, you know, and I hope people sitting in church.
We painted it.
Yes. And I hope people sitting in church this week went, it doesn't matter what you give. If you gave $5, there's people that give $1. If you gave $5, if you gave $1,000, you were a part of that. And we can't do things like that. We can't have ministry. We can't have a place for people to get baptized unless that happens. So I would say, just start somewhere and see what God does. Give prayerfully, give consistently, give intentionally. Like don't wait to see what's left over because that will never work. If you start with $5, give that and give it intentionally, give it no matter what and see what God does. Like I just think he shows up time and time and time again. And I think it will help you serve here, you're more committed here. Like you see that you are impacting the lives of people. Lives are being changed. People are getting baptized. The gospel's being shared. People are growing in their faith. We're able to go out and serve people and be there for our community in ways. So the more that you take part in that story, the more we're bringing God's kingdom on earth. And I think it's so cool. This was probably my closing thought, that God doesn't need us to make anything happen. And the fact that he invites us into that part of his story it's mind-blowing, you know? So I just say, jump in and be a part because, you know, we don't need it. I mean, we don't need it. God will work out what he has in mind for us. He'll make it happen, but you get to be a part of it. And I just think that's, at the end of the day,
that's a cool way to think of it. It's a privilege to be able to be part of the story. I mean, talking about worship, Jesus says, you know, even if the kids didn't cry out, the rocks would cry out. The stones would cry out for me. But why give the stones that privilege? You know, like, I want to be the one that worships. I want to be the one that gives. I want to be the one that helps someone. And that's the goal. The church should be the hands and feet of Jesus.
Absolutely. So, I think it's a little, I think I told you this, I'm probably a little bit of a idealist or whatever, but I honestly think that if the church answered the call that God puts on our lives of generosity, reaching our community, I think we would change more lives. I think we'd change the world. Like I think the body of believers is big enough and God's plan is big enough and our God is bigger than all of that.
Yeah. When you think of the capital C church, just believers working together and
but I think we can continue to radically transform our community, our church family, just what God has for us. He's placed us in this city, in this time, in this place, in this year, you know, 2026. And, you know, you're missing out if you're not participating. That's probably what I would say.
Yeah, that's good. I kind of think, I don't mean to go off on a weird tangent, but there's lots of different views of the end.
Mm.
Is what order things happen? Is the church raptured before the tribulation or later on in this journey? When is Christ returning?
Right.
Somewhere the world's getting worse, somewhere the world's getting better. I just think, what if the church was faithful, to your point, we changed the world, where if for certain other last things to play out, God has to take the church because we've been, we're so following after him. So
faithful, so focused.
The enemy is so threatened. But the church, finally allowed the Holy Spirit of God just to work in such a way that we could be incredibly effective for his kingdom and usher it in.
Usher it in.
His kingdom
here on earth. Here on earth.
Yeah. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven.
Yeah. We're supposed to bring that. We're supposed to be creating what that looks like.
Yeah.
And I think serving people, loving people, helping people in times of need is one way, not the only way, of course, but I think it is one tangible way that we can speak to a world that's hurting and confused and lost.
Yep.
And I think when we show up for each other, for one thing, because we do that so well here at Centerpoint, we are a family. I mean, we are a family, and our family, the stories I hear about generosity within the church, to the church, within the church, it's amazing. And when I want people at people's work to say, your church did what for you? They gave up their time. They gave up their money. They gave up their, relational space. They just are people that give. And like Josue has been saying, we serve a God that gives. So we give in return.
Yep. That's what joyful giving is all about. That got me excited. Just now I want to go give more.
We have 5 ways to give.
Okay, there we go. Any other words or?
No.
It's hard to add to that.
Yeah, but... I don't think that I think that's all I have to say.
All right. Well, thank you all for listening. We so appreciate you. If you want any questions for Suzie, she's on our staff, Suzie at centerpointchurch.church. If you have questions we could talk about more on the podcast, you can email podcast@centerpointchurch.church or come find us. We're here. Yeah. We're here during the week, Monday through Thursday in the office. We're here on Sundays and Wednesday nights, of course, as well. So come find us, talk to us, and we'd love to pray for you and encourage you. God bless.